It's the time of year again, love is in the air, and you might think that being a doctor always improves your dating prospects, but that's not always the case. What's going on, guys? For those of you who are new here, my name is Kevin Jabal, physician entrepreneur based in Las Vegas, formerly in plastic surgery. Disclaimer, in this video, we're talking about some population trends, some averages, some statistics. Of course, there's going to be individual variation, but we're talking about heteronormative averages and trends. And if you do want to learn more about gender dynamics, gender equality, and evolutionary psychology, then check out Chris Williamson on the Modern Wisdom podcast. I've been binging his stuff for the last year and it's so good. One of the reasons I value his content so much is that he's an independent thinker. You can't put him in a box. And in this day and age, tribalism is peaking, right? People are in this political group or that political group. They are part of this movement or that movement. And when you take on an identity as part of a group, you're outsourcing your own critical thinking ability. You can't think freely. You lose all that nuance, yes, nuance, in thinking. Let's start with the advantages of being a doctor. And first up is financial stability. The average physician makes between $230,000 to $340,000 per year, depending if they're a generalist, reformer, or a specialist for the latter. It's a straightforward path to having an upper middle class income. And while you would think that this is a strong advantage, there's actually a little bit of nuance there, which we're gonna get to in the disadvantages. Next up is the social status. Being a physician, being a doctor is perceived as somewhat prestigious. It means that you're a hard worker, you're smart, you're intelligent, you're successful. And usually there are a cluster of more favorable personality traits that are ascribed to you as a physician, things like compassion and empathy and work ethic, diligence, discipline. But men in both categories actually benefit much more than women, which we'll cover more in depth shortly. But let's transition now to the disadvantages. The first of which, of course, is time. As a physician, you don't have that much time to spend on relationships, on dating, especially during your training. But then even as an attending, it of course depends on your specialty. What are you doing? Surgical is gonna be a little bit more demanding, non-surgical a little bit less demanding on average. But overall, this can add a strain on dating and having a healthy relationship. Second is priorities. There may be times when you feel like you need to prioritize your career over your relationships. A common example that comes up is, of course, couples matching. So at the end of med school, when you're matching for residency, you can couples match with another individual who is usually your significant other. And you may need to compromise on your professional goals, your career in a certain way in order to end up with that person. Sometimes people aren't willing to make that commitment. They say, no, my career is more important right now. Third is emotional exhaustion. A lot of specialties, of course, some more so than others, are gonna really be taxing on the physician from an emotional standpoint. The toll of delivering bad news can really weigh on you, and over time especially, that can very much limit the amount of emotional bandwidth you have at home. And lastly, perhaps surprisingly for many of you, is that female physicians actually have a lot of trouble finding a life partner. Perhaps the biggest reason for that is actually related to hypergamy. And again, I do suggest you check out some evolutionary psychology and the Modern Wisdom podcast if you want to learn more about this. But essentially, hypergamy refers to the fact that women, again, population averages, tend to date across and above social hierarchies, whereas men tend to date across and below social hierarchies. If you go on Reddit or Doximity or Medscape or anywhere, you're gonna see a lot of articles about female physicians struggling to find life partners. And while on one hand, it's great that over the last several decades, women have had a lot more equality in the workplace and with opportunities, and they're actually surpassing men in a lot of educational milestones and such. On the other hand, there are these unintended consequences. One of them is that as a woman becomes more and more successful and moves higher up that social hierarchy, the number of men who are now at the same level or above her, the pool just gets smaller and smaller and smaller. This trend has actually been widening and widening. So back when I was in med school, it was a very close, like 51-49 ratio between women to men, where women were a little bit more represented entering medical school. And nowadays it's actually 56% females to 44% men. The trend continues in college, where 57% of bachelor's degrees are actually awarded to women. And you can even see the gap where women are outperforming men, even K through 12. This disparity between the number of highly educated women to highly educated men is referred to as the dating gap, and it refers to the fact that there aren't enough quality men to go around. According to the literature, women have been marrying down at increasing rates over the last 40 years, but women are still more likely to remain single than to, again, marry down. I'm using quotes because not a PC term, but I think that gets the point across as to what we're referring to. But there's hope, of course, because as humans, we're adaptable, and as the dating market is changing, so are our preferences and our behaviors. Historically, in marriages where the woman was more educated than the man, the relationship was much more likely to end in divorce. But according to a 2014 study, these associations have largely been dissolved. So the situation is largely reversed for men, such that they can increase their attractiveness, their dating market value, because by becoming a physician, they're increasing their social status as well as their financial stability. And remember that men tend to date on average across and down social hierarchies, so their pool is much bigger. The higher they go, the larger their pool becomes. According to research, and you probably already knew this, men tend to prioritize physical attraction, whereas women prioritize resources and personality. So in short, if you're a man and become a doctor, it can increase your optionality with dating substantially, whereas if you're a woman, it can actually decrease your optionality. Now, regardless of the cons, there are a lot of things that you can do as a physician to improve your dating and your relationships. First up is finding balance. Now, if you don't think you have the time or the ability or whatever to date, it's gonna become a self-fulfilling prophecy and you will never find the time or the ability to date. We sometimes get into these phases where we're like, I'm just gonna grind for the next 10 years. And it's like, it can, like those seasons in life where you just wanna work hard and maybe deprioritize relationships, they can work for shorter time horizons, but you have to realize that we're multifaceted and you can't just neglect relationships, companionship, etc., and just be this productivity machine. Not being fulfilled in that arena can actually limit you in other arenas too. Number 2 is online dating. Now I know a lot of people hate online dating, but it depends on the perspective through which you view it. So the first thing is time. As a med student or as a doctor, you are super limited on time, and online dating is a godsend because you can actually schedule dates and meet people from the comfort of your home when you're during your study breaks or whatever, such that you can actually schedule dates that you otherwise never would have been able to. Second is the improvement game. So just like anything else in life, you can actually improve and upgrade your skill at dating if you're frustrated with the results that you're currently getting. Online dating gives you a very large sample size and a very fast feedback loop. So if you are willing to be a little bit more intentional with your online dating approach, then you can learn extremely fast and get much better results very quickly. Now, online dating, it's a mixed bag. I get it. There's a lot of issues with it, but I don't think it's as bad as most people say. And part of that is if you're not getting the results that you want, then it's an opportunity for self-reflection. Like, if you want to be with an amazing person, are you being an amazing person yourself? If you want someone who's compassionate and super fit and well-read and intelligent and all these things, are you that person? Because if you're not, it's unlikely that you're going to attract that partner. And the last point is not being too rigid with your criteria. I know some people have these checklists when it comes to dating. It's completely nonsensical. A big one that comes up is that some people are very focused on whether they're dating inside of medicine or outside of medicine. There's even some apps out that are designed just for people in medicine. So someone might say, hey, I'm only dating other doctors, other people in healthcare or medicine because they're educated, we're very similar, we have a lot in common, we can relate to one another, they have a high earning potential, all the good things. They understand what I'm going through, they understand my schedule and how demanding and challenging this is. Someone else will say, hell no, because that person is gonna always be talking about medicine, I can't escape it, they don't have the freedom, they don't have the flexibility, and I need something beyond medicine in my life. But the issue here is that none of these are absolutes. There's so much variation from specialty to specialty or from job to job, or most importantly, person to person. Even in the same specialty, you can find two doctors that are complete opposites. One may be super dedicated, 60, 70 plus hours per week. I'm dedicated to my job, my career. I love this thing, this is my life. Someone else, same specialty. I want freedom and flexibility, 30 hours a week. Similarly, some doctors are gonna talk a lot about medicine, others won't. Overall, I do think it's a bit short-sighted. It's a bit immature to have these criteria as like, oh, I'm looking for this and that. They need to be this tall. They need to make this much money. And it's like, I think what you gotta do is just date more people, find out what you actually prioritize. I thought that I cared a lot about someone's educational background. And after dating some girls who did go to really great schools and had great degrees and great jobs, I was like, you know what?
That's actually not the most important thing.
Not by a long shot. But what about your dating experience as a med student or physician? Let us know with a comment down below. Let's start a discussion here. And if you enjoyed this video, then check out online dating for med students or this other video. Much love, and I'll see you guys there.